Welcome to another special live stream from the Misfit Gamers Studios. I am your host, Vortex, and this is your February community stream. Today, we are going to be doing Subletting Subclasses. This will be episode number 2 of this series, so we're really excited. We are going to be doing a fun one. This one that's probably going to challenge us quite a bit. So we are taking the Rune Knight, a fighter subclass, and we are going to transform that into a Warlock subclass. Really interested to see where we go with this. I know nothing about the Rune Knight and I have done no prior research, so I'm going into this completely blind, but we are going to see how well we can do. So join us today as we have a lot of fun. I'm really excited, and let's see what we can do with this. What do you know of the Rune Knight before we get started? I don't know if you've looked into it previously to this. I know absolutely zero.
So,
I assume magic based because runes.
yes, it's very interesting, especially because it's a fighter. And yes, it's magic. Like, you get to do things like certain runes that can like increase and decrease your size, that can like do different things potentially to your weapons. You can enhance your gear.
So I don't see Rune Knight in the player's handbook of 2024. So we're gonna have to use 14.
Rune Knight came from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
Okay, so we'll
Yes.
probably get an updated one when we get a 24 Tasha's, but as of right now, we'll have to use 5e14. So keep that in mind, everybody, when you're watching this. We are using 5e14 rule sets. I don't know if you know anything about Warlocks, but maybe as we read the Rune Knight, if there's a similar Warlock that we know of, we can kind of use that as also reference.
Contrast and compare. Okay.
Quick little rundown. We all pretty much know fighter. I think we've done a couple fighter subclasses on
Definitely.
here.
Very much so.
So from the fighter, quickly understanding how the fighter breaks down, you know, you're gonna get your fighting style, you're gonna get your accent surge, which gives you basically usually a free attack, your martial archetype, which is your subclass. Now the fighting style, what's specific to the fighting style again?
Fighting style, you get to choose whether you want to get advantages for dueling, get advantages for dual wielding, get advantages for being an archer.
It's the combination of weapons or not weapons.
Sure, or there's one called blind fighting where you literally get blind sense, right?
Gotcha.
There's lots of different things, but it's usually combat.
Specialties.
Yeah.
And then your ability scores, extra attack, 2 extra attacks to get more action surges, indomitable, which is really important as well. And then all the way up to your extra attack. So from the fighter perspective, the core class is obviously focusing on domination on the battle.
Yeah. Attacks, hit things a lot. Be
Gotcha.
scary with it.
So when we look at the Rune Knight subclass, we're looking at it from that point of view. So, you know, we've talked before about how classes are just more than a choice and just more of a set of mechanics, right? It's part of the person, right? Usually you wouldn't be a fighter with someone who doesn't want to work out, who doesn't want to be in physical shape, right? It doesn't really align with the mindset that you would be someone so prevalent in physical activity, but not be physical, right? So there's some characteristics that you would expect from someone who goes fighter, just like you wouldn't choose a wizard, but be someone who's like, I hate reading books. Like, that doesn't really align. Then go be a sorcerer, right? So the class is a little bit more in the background. So you have to kind of keep in mind, like when I think of like choosing a class, it's more than just what it gives you. It also kind of represents part of you, like a part of what your character is. It may be part of your personality, or it might be part of your upbringing, your background. It's just, I like to think of classes as what got me here, right? So the core class kind of is more about what's being brought out of your person. Core part is what is the spark inside of you, because the subclass is more of what you do with that spark. So again, that's what a subclass is. It's what do you do with that spark. So I like the idea that this spark is someone who is battle-minded, who wants to be able to, control things when needed. Doesn't necessarily mean aggressive, but dominating on a battlefield mindset, right? Do we want to compare that to a Warlock now, or do we want to go to the subclass? Do we want to get the cores dialed in so we kind of understand?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Getting the core of the Warlock.
So Warlocks, we have the otherworldly patron, so that's just the onset of the deal. I'm going to make a deal with you. The spark of the Warlock starts with an average person needing something to an extent that they are willing to make a deal, whether this deal is for their soul, for a loved one, for a task. It doesn't really matter, but at the end of the day, they were willing to gain magical power in exchange for something, with something of unknown origin, typically of a unknown or magical origin, right? And then we get the Eldritch Invocations, so this is, and then your Pact Boon. So this is all just building up to being able to cast magic
Invocations, no. Invocations are special, unique warlock abilities, kind of similar to artificers and their infusions.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Like you can cast this first level spell as a cantrip.
Oh,
They're
okay.
like-
so they're the unique features that will start to define you based on
Yes.
who you choose and everything. Gotcha. Okay.
They're not exactly based on who you choose. There's something you do get to choose in here called your Pact Boon at level 3, which is where you decide whether you are going to have like a Pact of the Blade, where you have like a weapon that you use all the time, whether you want to be Pact of the Tome and you want to be casting spells the majority of the time, or you're going to be Pact of the Familiar, where you have a little otherworldly familiar that you can like interact
Gotcha.
with and do different things with. Just different things you can
Giving
do.
you the ability to do magic, and then how defining how you can manipulate that magic.
Yes.
And then, of course, you get your ability scores, otherworldly patron features. So that's going to come, I'm assuming, from your subclass.
Correct.
And then,
And you get to choose your subclass at level 1, which makes the most sense when it comes to a warlock.
right.
Because out the gate, you got to choose a patron.
And then it really just keeps on going. Otherworldly patron features. So a lot of this is leaning into the subclass. Really, again, it just comes down to core spark here is I wanted to be able to do magic. And this core spark is I'm going to get stronger at doing magic.
Mhm.
And then the subclass says, well, how did you get that magic? Right? Kind of like the fighter spark. What are you doing with it? Like what's shaping how you do this magic?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
we are going from the fighter. So again, the fighter class comes from someone who wants to dominate the battlefield, or at least handle business when business needs to be handled. The warlock comes from an idea that for whatever reason, they needed power / magic. So you have the similarity is that you have two people willing to do what's needed.
Mhm.
I'm trying to understand because we're going to be morphing one to the next.
Sure.
So now let's look at the subclass of Rune Knight and really let's see what does somebody, how does this lore work and what really like makes a Rune Knight. All right, so Rune Knights enhance their martial prowess using their supernatural power of runes, the supernatural power of runes, an ancient practice that originated with giants. Rune cutters can be found among any family of giants, and you likely learn your methods first or second hand from such a mystical artisan. Whether you find the giants' work carved into a hill or cave, learn from the runes of a sage, or met the giant in person, you study the giant's craft and learn how to apply magic runes to empower your equipment. Interesting. Okay. So they're treating this almost similar to like wards, like warding. Or
Kind of. The way I envision is like you etch a rune onto a weapon, a shield, or something.
that's kind of what I'm thinking.
And then it does something to it. Like either enhances it, give you extra armor class, maybe it'll give you fire attacks. Like who knows?
Gotcha. Okay, well let's learn about what the abilities do, but I'm kind of starting to get the lore of like,
I'm already thinking the giant's gonna be your patron.
right? Or like while you and a fighter are on these cave walls and this mystic ruins, and he's learning how to do it just like from the caves, right? You walk through and you get into this one magic hall, and then you start like
Disturb
like
something you shouldn't have disturbed.
yeah, and
you
it starts
see-
speaking to you, and maybe it's the god of giants or some creature the giants worshipped that isn't a
Yeah.
god, and it's like, you want this power? I taught the giants this. Let me give it to you. So we can kind of already start to see that there's lore here already baked in, that they went to something somewhere to get this knowledge. That something or somewhere could have had something that spoke to a warlock, and not the fighter, because the fighter isn't here for that. They needed someone who was more of the mindset of I'm willing to give myself to know this knowledge.
Sure.
So at third level, your bonus proficiency is when you choose this archetype at third level, you gain the proficiency with the smithing tools. You learn, speak, read, and write giant. I'm definitely thinking a not necessarily the deity or a god of giants, but I'm definitely thinking like a powerful giant that became, you know, just, or an ancient creature that's also similar to giants. And so the giants are like just, you know, associated
Theoretically,
to it.
Loki was a giant, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So
or half
things like
giant or
that.
something like that.
So rune carver, starting at third level, you can use magic runes to enhance your gear. You learn 2 runes of your choice from among the runes described below, and each time you gain a level in this class, you can replace 1 rune you know with a different rune from this feature. When you reach certain levels in this class, you learn additional runes as shown in the rune table. So basically you get 2 at third, 3 at 7th, 4 at 10th, 5 at 15th. So you get up to 5 runes.
Okay.
And at each level, you're able to swap one out. So I'm assuming that the runes get better and better as you go.
Okay. Got you.
Whenever you finish a long rest, you can touch a number of objects equal to the number of runes you know. Okay, so basically every day, you can set these runes to any number of objects. And you inscribe a different rune onto each of the objects. To be eligible, an object must be a weapon, suit of armor, shield, piece of jewelry, or something else you can wear or hold in the hand.
Oh, that's interesting. So I can't. So if I know 2 runes, I can't cast 1 rune on 2 different objects. They have to be different runes.
You can bear only one of your runes at a time. Yeah, so 1 rune
But
per object.
just before you read that, it said something.
So you touch a number of objects equal to the number of runes you know.
Keep
You
reading.
inscribe a different rune onto each
that
object.
line, a different rune onto each object. That means I can't have 2 swords, one for you and one for you, with the same rune on it.
Correct. Yeah, you only get one of each.
Interesting.
But yeah, so it has to be weapon, armor, shield, jewelry, or something that you can hold in your hand. Fallen runes are available to you when you learn a rune. If a rune has a level requirement, you must be at least that level in this class to learn the rune. If the rune requires a saving throw, your rune magic save DC equals 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your constitution modifier.
Con mod. Wild. Okay.
So I'm going to kind of go through these a little bit fast, but Cloud Rune emanates deceptive magic used by some cloud giants. You have the advantage on dexterity and charisma, so sleight of hand and deception. In addition, when you are a creature you can see within 30 feet is hit by an attack, you can use your reaction to invoke the rune, choose a different creature other than the attacker. So basically, you can just alter a target. That's kind of dope.
So you're coming to attack me. I can be like, no, now you're attacking your ally. That's
When you or a creature you see gets hit by an attack, you can use your reaction to say, no, you attacked him instead.
And it doesn't matter how far away they are. They
Correct.
just suffer the effects of that attack.
Using the same rolls. So they would still have to beat the AC and all of that.
Sure,
But
sure.
Correct, yes. You just basically be like, nope, you attacked him instead. That's kind of dope.
What's the range on that?
30 feet.
30 feet? I like that.
So Fire Rune proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check that uses your proficiency with a tool. In addition, when you hit a creature with an attack, Fiery Shackles, the target takes extra 2d6 fire damage. It must exceed its strength or be restrained for a minute. While restrained, the target takes 2d6 fire damage at the start of each of its turns. The target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, banishing the shackles on a success. So basically, when you hit a creature with an attack, invoke the rune, and they get shackles on them. They take an extra 2d6 damage. They have to make a strength check or be restrained for a minute. And then every round, they take 2d6 fire damage at the start of their turn, and they can repeat their saving throw at the end of their turn.
Okay, so it's save ends. You get to try it every time, but it's for a minute.
Devastating though. Frost Rune, while wearing, you have the advantage on wisdom, animal handling, and charisma intimidation checks. In addition, your bonus actions increase your sturdiness for 10 minutes. So as a bonus action, for 10 minutes, you gain a +2 to all your ability checks and saving throws that use strength and constitution.
That's crazy.
It's not bad. The Stone Rune, while wearing the object, you have advantage on insight, and you have dark vision out to 120 feet. It's not too bad. When a creature you can see ends its turn within 30 feet of you, you use the reaction to force that creature to make a wisdom saving throw. Unless they save, the creature is charmed for a minute. While charmed, the creature has a speed of 0 and is incapacitated, descending into a dreamy stupor. The creature repeats the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on a success, once you, and then short or long rest. That one isn't the greatest, but again, you're going to get multiple of these. So that one will be a later game kind of thing. These are a lot of stun options. So the Stone Rune allows you to basically charm someone into incapacitation. So late game, I could see that being better. I don't think that's not the first one you choose. That's definitely one you choose a little bit later down the road.
Yeah.
The Hill Rune, while wearing or carrying an object that bears this rune, you have the advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, and you have resistance against poison damage. That's it. I would have liked a little bit more. In addition, you can invoke it on a bonus action, gaining resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing for 1 minute. So you kind of become a barbarian for a minute.
For combat, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So I like this one, the Hill Rune, the Hill Giant, or the Hill Rune one. I don't know. Do you think it should do more than poison? I mean, I know this is a core, so we can't really argue with it, but I feel like I do like the resistance, but I don't know. Immune to poison feels weak as the base thing that it does.
I mean, I don't disagree there. I don't disagree.
The Storm Rune, you can get a glimpse of the future while wearing or carrying. You have the advantage on Arcana checks, and you can't be surprised as long as you aren't incapacitated. As a bonus action, you can enter a prophetic state for 1 minute or until you're incapacitated, until the state ends. When you or another creature you can see within 60 feet makes an attack roll or saving throw or an ability check, you can use your reaction to cause the roll to have advantage or disadvantage. So basically, for 1 minute, you have battlefield control on any roll you want.
Any roll?
So you enter it for 1 minute, and until it ends, when you or another creature within 60 feet makes an attack, saving throw, or an ability check, you can just say that has advantage or disadvantage. So for 1 minute, anybody who makes one of those 3 things, you're like advantage or disadvantage.
Well, you can keep doing it over and over and over again for a minute.
So yeah, literally, you're just sitting there being like advantage, advantage, disadvantage, advantage, disadvantage for the whole minute. but it says a reaction, so it's only
once per turn.
Yeah, but it's still for a minute, and it's not concentration. So as long as you don't go down, you help it. That's huge. I totally understand why that's 7th level. That would be way too devastating. That would make you literally walking tanks.
That's wild.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. Real quick, what do we know already about our Rune Knight? So I know you all can't say that too much, but we basically have, under the Rune Knight, we have runes when we get them, and then we can assign one each at a long rest, and then they all reset at short or long rest. All right, so Giant's Might. So at 3rd level, you've learned how to imbue yourself. With the Might of Giants, as a bonus action, you magically gain the following benefits, which last for a minute. If you are smaller than large, you become large. You have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. Once on each of your turns, one of your attacks with a weapon or unarmed strike can deal extra 1d6 damage to a target on a hit. All right, so with Runic Shield, you learn to invoke the rune magic to protect your allies. When another creature you can see within 60 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to force the attacker to re-roll the d20 and use the new roll. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. All right, so great stature. The magic of your rune permanently alters you. When you gain this feature, roll 3d4. You grow a number of inches in height equal to the roll. Moreover, the extra damage you deal with your giant might increases to 1d8. I would almost prefer, because it says, you know how like if you're not large, you can grow to large. I wouldn't have minded saying instead of growing a couple inches, if it says if you are not large, you grow 1 full size. So if you're tiny, now you're small. If you're small, you're medium. If you're medium, you're huge. Like
there are, see, it's hard because there are rarely playable humanoid races and that can introduce significant play restrictions.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so at Master of Runes at level 15, you invoke each rune you know from your Rune Carver feature. You can invoke each of them twice rather than one. You regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest.
Wait. Does it just say you can invoke each rune twice, or does it say the number of runes you can have out?
You don't get more runes to have out. You can just use them each. Because so each one has the ability to say when you invoke this rune, once you invoke this rune, you can do so until a long rest. Now I can do it twice in between long rests.
I thought it meant I could have 2 runes of the same type out now.
No. This just means that once you've activated a rune, you can activate it twice between each long rest.
Got it.
So rune use times 2. And
that's very cool.
Level 8. At 18th, you learn to amplify your rune powered transformation. As a result, the extra damage you deal with the Giant's Might feature increases to 1d10. Moreover, when you use this feature, your size increases to huge. And while you're at that size, your reach increases by 5. There it is.
So they went that way anyways. I do like the fact that they increase your reach.
Oh yeah. All right, cool. So that is the Rune Knight. This person sought giant magic, literal giant's magic, and can now have learned enough to be able to imbue certain aspects. Now, when it comes to Warlock, now we have to decide. This one got 5 subclass features. But a Warlock...
Only 4?
Yeah, only 4. Okay, so we get one at 1, 6, 10, 14, huh? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's figure it out. So obviously the Warlock, we're going to assume that the Warlock is going to have some sort of giant patron or something akin to a giant patron that is going to unlock this knowledge for them, right? Should the Warlock get the same number of ruins based off of this or based off of their classes? I think it should go off of their subclass list, not the subclass list. So they should get ruin upgrades at
Agreed.
1, 6, 10, 14.
Very much so.
So
and if we want to do something like when describing the first level feature, you could say at 3rd level, at 5th level, you get this increase to this ability, just so it fills out a little bit more as you're leveling up. We could totally do that. I just feel like that'll come along as necessary, but I definitely agree with following the current Warlock template. Because you get this at 1st level, I definitely want it to feel like a 1st level ability.
Now that we understand what the runes kind of do, we have to still decide what our runes will do for a Warlock.
I will say one thing to consider is Warlocks also get a expanded spell list. Every subclass gets an expanded spell list.
Oh, so we're gonna have to come up with those too. Okay, cool. So
that's just something to keep in mind. We'll likely eventually need to go down that road.
Okay.
You get one at 1st level, 2nd level, 3rd level, 4th level, and 5th level. It's an expanded spell list. So traditionally, they just allow you to choose spells from spell lists other than the Warlock spell list.
So we're not creating new spells.
It's like the Hexblade, they get access to smites.
Oh, gotcha.
They get access to smites because Hexblade, they're doing melee damage, and they want you to be able to like smite and do things like that. So we could just pick spells that already exist that are out there.
Okay, so going back to the Warlock base then. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 runes you can have, but the Rune Knight only gets 5 out. Do we think the Warlock should also be capped at 5 runes when they're at their peak?
I kind of feel maybe they don't necessarily get just access to 5 runes, but like as you go through, maybe like certain things happen. Maybe they can use rune, like a certain effect will happen every time they cast Eldritch Blast. So do we want to lean into the tome versus the blade versus something else? Because I think how we implement the rune might be affected by that. Okay. I don't know what you think.
Okay, so
because I love the augmentation of how these runes are implemented in the fighter style.
Well, and I also like that each rune, like all of the runes get to do something different, right? Like I like that you're not like locked into one, like you're not just being like a storm, right? Mm-hmm. You're gonna get all of them. You're gonna be able to use all of them in any combination that you want. I really want to lean into that instead of forcing the Warlock down a single path.
And, okay, so according to this, theoretically, you could give all of these things to your buddies and none of them to yourself, right? There's nothing saying that you have to be the one that uses these things. The only thing that's specific to you is your Giant's Might.
Yeah, this doesn't say that the rune maker has to be the user. So definitely the fighter could be
kind of like the artificer, how they're like making gear for their buddies.
They could, yes. I mean, depending upon how the party works. Yeah, so let's see. So let's look at the idea. Like the Warlock, someone who needs power, and how you come across this stuff. Think about childhood buddies, right? They're going through life. They have a little bit different backgrounds, but they're both trying to solve their problem. One's trying to get power. One's trying to be able to stand up for, something. They're both going out, and we know that in order to get this, they have to learn from somebody how to carve these, or they have to go somewhere and get it off of an ancient inscription. But with Warlocks, they're usually like gifted the knowledge. So how are they getting this, and what is that manifesting as, right? Are they getting a number of
I'll say my first question would be, if it goes on an object, will they be able to put it on their packed weapon, and will they be able to put it on their packed tome? At 3rd level, Warlocks get to choose a packed boon. One of those features is a blade that they can summon as a bonus action that they are magically connected to. Mm-hmm. Another option for that is a grimoire that they have. And so these are still physical objects that you could theoretically inscribe with a rune, but they are in and of themselves magical already.
So I'd almost now say that now what I want to do then is the Warlock version has to use the runes on one of their packs.
Then could they use it on the chain or the talisman as well?
I think they have to. Like the idea is depending on which one they choose, the blade, the chain, the tome, the talisman.
Okay.
I think the idea would be that the runes should have to be inscribed onto their thing. And depending on which rune they have, they can activate.
Would you say like they could change their rune every long rest and like use a different rune on a different day?
Well, because what I'm thinking of is they should be able to have, like, they want to be able to work up to having multiple runes on their book, on their thing. So it should be a combination of limiting how many runes, so how many runes you can have, kind of like the Rune Knight, mixed with, well, we can do the same thing. We can do 2, 3, 4, 5 at 1, 6, 10, 14. But again, instead of it being on different items, the Warlock would have it all on the same item, and then it would be limited to probably kind of like this says, you can use any number of runes equal to your like proficiency modifier or something, right? Like the idea would be that you can have all of these runes on your thing, but you do have a cap on how many times you can just either activate each one or just in general how many times. So making you more versatile.
What the rune is on won't matter. It'll do the same thing regardless. So whether it's on your sword or your tome or your bird, it's gonna do the same thing. Or hey, if this is on your familiar, it's gonna act like this. Hey, if it's on your tome, it's gonna act like this.
That's
a lot.
That basically makes individual
cool as fuck,
tables,
but that's a lot.
And that's where like individual, yeah. So how do we make this a little bit more?
Because there's something similar for the Totem Warrior Barbarian. Every time you level up, you kind of like can add another head to your totem. you could have like the same head. Like you can choose the bear every single time and you get like a full bear or whatever the case may be. But you could start off choosing the bird, then the next one choose the bear, then the next one choose the elk, the next one. So you could like mix and match. You could do different things, but I do kind of like the idea. Like when you pick one of these, like you're saying, this is how I want to fight. I want to fight with a blade. I want to fight with a tome. I want to fight with a familiar, right? And so are we leaning into enabling you to fight with this thing that you're trying to fight with? Do we want to, because like this subclass, they are saying this is how this subclass works, period. Not if you choose Pact to the Blade, it'll work like this. If you choose Pact to the Tome, it'll work like this. And most Warlock subclasses are that way.
And I think we have to keep with that. I think we have to keep it as universal as possible, because nobody wants to read through 5 of the same subclass just to figure out which variation they want. No DM wants to have 5 of the same subclass, you know, for
sure.
I think we have to go the route of making it potentially with synergy in mind, but making it as just directly usable as possible.
Okay.
I think we should first decide. So are we comfortable with keeping the rune amount? Because there's 6 runes that they can do, or 6 abilities. Should we still cap it at 5? Like you can still only have 5 of the 6. You basically can't have just guaranteed all of them all the time, right? Like, are we still okay with that? And letting the Warlock do the 3, 4, or the 2, 3, 4, 5 at 1, 6, 10, 14? Because I feel like the Rune Knight versus the Warlock, the Warlock's going to have a lot more versatility with how often and how much they can use. Versus, again, the Rune Knight's locked into only being able to put these on certain things. I kind of like what you were saying with the selfishness. It shouldn't matter what the Warlock's thing is, but the idea is that the runes are there on it, so it can use its reactions anytime it's going to use one of those runes, right? I'm thinking the Warlock should just have these as basically free abilities kind of thing. As a reaction, they're going to burn this rune and you can do something regardless of what it's on, right?
Okay, that would be kind of cool. It's like your runes on whatever it is are glowing, and whenever you burn one, it like kind of like dims out and goes out until
it's just like this thing. Whenever you use a bonus action to when you invoke this rune, right, and then you can't do it until a short rest, but every long rest you get to swap them out. That's kind of what I think the Warlock, instead of the Rune Knight carving it in, what I imagine the Warlock's doing is holding its packed weapon, its tome, and just like etching it on magically to where, like, you know, every morning they're changing the sigils on it, so now it glows like that.
But there would be nothing for them to change unless they had access to all runes all the time, because for them it would just be permanently on whatever they chose. So because you cannot put 2 of the same runes on, you only know 2 runes at 3rd level for them, but 1st level for you. Right? So you're gonna have those 2 runes on whatever it is that you have, period.
Well, but you have all of these to choose from. Well, you have like so that's the question. You could have the cloud. You have the choice that every morning you can put any 2 of the cloud, fire, frost, or stone rune at level 1.
They're like preparing spells. Yeah. You have access to all of them.
Warlock knows all the runes, but they can only inscribe 2, 3, 4, and 5. So every morning they can change it up. I don't mind the Warlock being able to be like, hey, this morning I'm gonna go with cloud and fire today, and then the next day they get to go with fire and frost instead. Is that too powerful? Is that too much? Because again, they're only ever going to get capped at 2 until level 6. Then they get to have 3 of them, and then until level 10 they get to have 4 of them. But at early levels,
when do they get 3 of them?
They don't get 3 until level 6. So that's going to be a while before they really get to cycle through. And then at level 10, then they're going to unlock all of these, and then they can have 4. But then they're going to have unlocked 2 others, right? Because they're not going to unlock those until level 7. So they're still only going to get 3. So at level 7, they're going to have any 3, but of all 5 or all 6 of these options. Whereas it's not really going to benefit them. I think that doesn't sound too bad, because again, the Warlock made a deal for this knowledge. They're just limited in how much they can do, which also explains why they can only do 1 at a time. They know them all, but they can only activate 1 at a time.
Having 2 at level 1 does feel like,
even though they can only really activate their abilities once, like once per long rest or short rest.
Yeah, because imagine being able to do this every combat. Both of these, 2 things every combat at level 1. That feels like way more than any other class could do. Again, most of these other classes aren't getting their subclass until level 3.
True.
And it feels a lot better at level 3. Like for a fighter,
and that's also, I mean, you could make the argument how many people start at level 1, but you're right. If you do start at level 1,
Clerics start at level 1. There's some others start at level 1, but
I don't mind this having a higher advantage early on like that. I don't mind that personally, but I get that doesn't synergize with the whole party necessarily. Because while I like these things, I don't necessarily think.
When do you get the next ability for warlocks after level 1?
1, 6, 10, 14.
So 6.
So you're 5 levels while everyone's getting there. Because again, you're gonna start out stronger, but at level 3, everyone's gonna catch up to you, and then at level 5, everyone's gonna be beyond you. And then at level 6, you'll catch up. And then they get things at level 7. Then you have to wait till level 10. So I don't know if it's...
Because at level 3, I'm getting my pact boon. So I feel like I'm doing something at that point.
Right. And you've already had 2 of these runes
Actually,
to play
that's
with.
interesting. What are your runes on before you get your pact boon? Because you don't get your pact boon until level 3. You get your pact magic. You get the ability to just cast spells. You get your patron feature, and then you get your invocations, which is pretty cool. But even your invocations don't necessarily require a pact boon yet. And then at level 3, that's when you're maybe.
So what if they had the ability starting at level 1? They can inscribe any one. So they still know all the runes, right? But they can inscribe any one on any of the required items until level 3, and then they are required to go on the pact boon.
And then it's associated with your boon.
And then
you can like have a sword, and you have like a regular sword, and you can describe
whatever until you get your pact boon, but then they have to go on your pact boon. But basically, if you're starting out at level 1, you get 1, and that 1 rune can go on anything. But once you get your pact boon, and then
you get 2 of them.
And then you would get 2 at level 3, and then you get 3 at level 6, then 4 at level 10, then 5 at level 14. So slightly off from the standard, but I don't think that's that terrible to just say.
I don't think that, and you could probably articulate its progress in the level 1 stat, because they do that a lot of the times. They'll be like, you increase this feature at X, 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 and X. So you could say that.
So I like that. I don't mind that. And then so the caveat is that 1 rune between level 1 and 3, a rune can go on any of the prescribed items, but starting at level 3, it has to go on your pact. The warlock knows them all from the beginning and can select from them each morning. We're okay with that?
I
think that would define the warlock a little bit better, because again, they've gotten unlocked knowledge, they just don't have access to it all yet.
Sure. So I am not mad at that. I'm not mad at that at all. My next question becomes, do we want to include anything along the lines of the Giant's Might ability that also comes at 3rd level when you first select this? Now, I will point out that most Warlock classes also get 2 Warlock features at level 1 when they take it. You get Hex Warrior and Hexblade's Curse at level 1 when you take the Hexblade subclass. So it depends on what you want to do.
Well, I want it to be as close to feeling like a Warlock subclass. So what the other subclasses do, we'll want to add those in as well.
Sure.
We just need to make sure that those align with what we're trying to do here. So yeah, so whatever the Warlock does, we should follow suit. Do you think that these abilities as the runes, do you think it makes sense that these are the powers regardless of who learns them? Or do you think that each class would learn how to use the runes differently? Because if we have to rewrite all of these...
So I would say the idea of subletting subclasses is, I can't imagine that everybody who learned this thing applied it the same way.
Sure.
Right? Now, I do see the point of, are the runes just doing what the runes do and different people are using them?
Because really, the difference in the subclass is like Giant's Might. It's not about the Frost rune. Like the Frost rune is the Frost rune, but Giant's Might will be different for a fighter than it will for a warlock.
Read me the Frost rune, just one of the runes.
So Frost rune, the rune's magic invokes the might of those who survived in the wintry wilderness, such as frost giants. While wearing or carrying an object inscribed with this rune, you have advantage on animal handling and intimidation checks. In addition, you can invoke the rune as a bonus action to increase your sturdiness. For 10 minutes, you gain +2 bonus to all ability checks and saving throws that use strength or constitution. Once you invoke the rune, you can't do so again until a short or long rest. So I'm okay calling the runes. Like the runes are just what they do. But again, the subclass is going to be more about what does Giant Might do to a Warlock? What does Runic Shield do to a Warlock? Because those don't have anything to do with the runes. The runes are just something else you get.
I think like you, in certain situations, I would definitely feel better if these runes were what they did and like how, like I would feel better if like you could take the concept of what that frost rune does and apply it more to like Warlock stuff. But I definitely see the ideal and the benefit of maintaining the runes are what the runes are, and then spending more time focusing on how the other aspects of the subclass are going to be more the connection of the giant rather than the runes. Even though it's called Rune Knight, it's more of like
the connection to how the giant magic works. So how about let's do this. Let's proceed under the mentality that the runes are the runes,
okay,
just like a spell list, and we're focusing on what they've done with them. Once we're done with that, instead of modifying the runes, there's nothing that says, just like with every other spellcaster, we can't add runes.
Sure.
Just like we can add spells, instead of modifying what is, we can just say that with this subclass, you get 3 extra runes as part of the unlock of knowledge. Maybe we just say, hey, you know what? I want a fog rune instead of a cloud rune. I want a lava rune. I want a lava rock rune instead of, you know what I mean? We could make up our own runes if we think that the Warlock needs to do something.
Sure.
Because that's easier to digest for people than saying, we're going to change up what each rune does for each class. I'm okay with this. I like this level progression. I like the add-on that you start with 1 and then it requires your boon be on your boon after level 3 once you get it. But then you start getting more. And then you know them all from the beginning, but you still have the level caps on when you can use them. So let's talk about our first level ability. So it seems like so far when you get 2 of them, 1 is like something that you can do, and then 1 is like
an enhancement to something.
Well, yeah, because like Hexblade Warrior, you get proficiencies and more stuff you can wear, but then you also get to curse somebody. The Great Old One,
those proficiencies, isn't it proficiencies and you can add your charisma modifier to your weapon attack?
Oh,
that's kind of what I mean by enhancing something.
Yeah, and then this one, like you learn these cantrips.
Oh, kind of like the Paladin's lay on hands.
Yeah, and then like Fathomless, you can swim and breathe underwater, and you can summon a tentacle that strikes at your foes as a bonus action. Okay, so yeah, so a lot of these are giving you like 2 things right out the gate, and this typically seems to come from your patron. So do you think changing the Warlock size as one of these features would be beneficial? Like, should this be you become a large creature? Or could it be something as simple as, upon this, what if one of the first things is you get like a +2 to your constitution?
I mean, I could definitely see that thematically. Getting stat boosts from a subclass is wild.
That is? Okay.
That's crazy. Like you would get that from like your ASI or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's
like
true.
I could see you getting maybe you could be proficient in Constitution saving throws. That could be a thing you could get. That wouldn't be terrible. Kind of like the idea, maybe you don't have to like literally get bigger in size, but maybe the essence of like your giant patron silhouettes you and you hit harder, or like whatever you're doing is like more powerful. So it's a similar effect, like you're getting this like might of giants, but it's not necessarily your size that changes. It's just strong, whatever it is you're doing is. Because again, if you choose the tome and you're not really punching people, like what good does getting big do to you? If I'm doing all these things in a different way, like.
So would it be beneficial to say, still give it like the 2 things at level 1, but should one of the things at level 1 basically be the thing that describes why you can have one of the runes now?
I definitely think that should be one. Like,
okay, so that's
something called like rune magic, where it's like you can now imbue one weapon, very similar to how the Hexblade does, how you can use your charisma modifier on this weapon. You can put a rune on X, Y, and Z weapon.
Yeah, and then you can even just add the thing, once you have access to a packed boon, all runes will be used on the packed boon.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be one of them.
Should we, because this is a patron, have them select the type of giant that they are coming into a contract with? As in, like, if you chose like an ice giant, maybe you get like resistance to cold damage or something like that.
Okay, so what if if you wanted to do that, where at level 1 you get access to all of the runes, but when you make a pact you must dedicate to a rune. When you do, you may have resistance to a damage type equal to the rune of your choosing. So fire resistance, frost resistance, you could do stone for bludgeoning, hill would be poison and disease, storm would be lightning,
I would say when you dedicate to a rune, you always have that rune inscribed on your boon.
And that's the first rune you get at level 1. When you dedicate to a rune, that's the first rune you know until you unlock a boon. Then you unlock all of them, but you always have this one.
Because like you're kind of choosing that as like your foundation.
So even though you get this one at level 1, at level 3 you get one more, but you still always have this one. So you're still actually getting less control than the Rune Knight, but you always have one inscribed. Let's do that. Yes. So guaranteed rune automatically shifts to your pack boon in all future. And that sounds like a good level 1. Dedicate to a rune, always on. And that's the one that you get right off the bat. You get resistance to that magic type. And then when you get your pack boon, runes have to be applied to it. And what are we going to call that?
I don't mind keeping it simple and just calling it something like...
Because it can't be giant might.
I was going to call just this part runic magic.
Because like pack magic.
Yes. Like it's like, hey, this is what I can now do with these runes. Like I now have the ability to like use magic of runes on these things.
I think pack rune sounds better.
I do think, and it kind of makes sense too, because it's the rune of your pact. Because you're not making a pact with a rune.
So the Rune Knight at this point was able to do Giant Might, which as a bonus action for 1 minute, they become large. They have advantage on strength-based stuff, and they get an increased 1d6 of damage. And then at 7th level, they're going to have Runic Shield, which basically means that whenever an ally they can see within range gets hit, they can force a reroll on the attack. So as it comes down to a Warlock, Warlocks tend to be selfish, but they also have the chance to do buffing. At this point, the Rune Knight would be able to self-buff and buff an ally. And so far, the Warlock at this point really only has access to the one rune. Or 2 runes at this point. So they haven't really been able to do anything outside of gain access to runes. At 6th level, they're going to get their 3rd rune, but we haven't really been able to do anything with them yet. So what should we do as a Warlock? Should we focus on the party or focus on ourselves? This is our one and only ability until level 10, like the one and only time we get to really do something. So I don't mind adding 1 or 2 abilities here.
For the Rune Knight, so they get Giant's Might, and then they get Runic Shield. So
by now, right? Like, yeah. So about the same time.
I'm trying to get an idea of like the pattern that the initial Rune Knight was.
So the
going.
Rune Knight goes buff self, help ally, buff self, get to do all my runes more, buff self. So really, the Rune Knight only helps the allies once. Everything else is focused on becoming stronger.
I feel like, do we for the Warlock want everything to be along one path, or are we okay diverging once like they did?
I mean, we only got 3 abilities to do it, so I don't know if it's beneficial to diverge too far.
Sure.
I think that's where I'm getting at. They're able to use 3 different runes. One's already guaranteed. They get to use 3 runes. So should they be able to use their own innate magic that they got from their Warlock to enhance those runes, or can they draw from those runes to enhance what they're already doing?
I do like the idea of being able to use the runes to enhance your magic.
Okay.
Because depending upon what pact they end up choosing is going to depend on like how they choose to fight. If they choose Pact of the Tome, they're gonna want to be doing a lot of spell casting.
But if they choose the Hexblade, they may be
doing a lot more melee stuff. And so, you know, it's not like you never use magic, because regardless, if you're a Warlock, you have spell slots and you're going to be wanting to use those spells for something, right? Whether you're using it for Armor of Agathis, just to protect yourself when you go into melee combat, or if because you get very few spell slots as a Warlock to begin with.
So how about this? What if we were to say, like at 6th level, as a reaction, when you deal damage, you can change the damage type to 1 rune that you have. So if you have
to like the type of resistance that you have.
So if well, you always have resistance with your assigned rune. But let's say my assigned rune's the frost rune. So I always have that one on. And let's say at level 6, I have fire, frost, and bludgeoning. When I have those active, let's say I attack someone. I shoot a spell at them. I use Hexblade, whatever my attack is, and I do damage. I can then burn my reaction, and whatever damage I did to them, I can change it to fire, frost, or bludgeoning, because those are my 3 active runes. So I don't add damage, but what I can do is, let's say I'm against a fire demon, and I have fire magic planned. I can hurl that fire magic at it, and then as soon as it hits, I can use my reaction to be like, nah, it's actually frost damage.
Okay.
So burning a reaction to change the damage type of your attack. So as a warlock, whether you're melee or whether you're casting spells, you can use a reaction to change the damage type to a rune you have active. And that's all you're doing. Just changing the damage type.
Are you going to use the word verbiage of an attack, or if I cast, like, for example, fireball? I'm not saying that they get fireball,
if you were to deal damage.
Okay. Fair enough.
You can use a reaction to do it.
Change the damage.
Should it be at 6th level, you can change all damage, or you can change one die roll?
I like just changing the damage of the spell.
Okay, cool. So should that be the only thing 6th level can do, or is that the core?
That's why I do feel like there should be something else. If this is the core, I wouldn't mind a smaller one, but this is pretty impactful. I wouldn't want this and another major one. Sure.
But I'm okay with 2 options. Okay, so should it also now have a passive ability? Ooh, what about this? Because normally you have to decide the runes that you're going to take at the start of each day, after a long rest, and you can replenish them after a short rest. What if at 6th level you can swap them at a short rest?
You could swap a rune during a short rest.
So instead of waiting for a long rest to swap them out, you basically at a short rest you can just constantly swap it, because now you have 3, and now you have 2 that you can change up. But remember, the Rune Knight at this point would have 3 that he can change up. So by you being able to do it at any short rest, you have a lot more versatility to be. I'm not mad at that.
I'm not mad at that.
Okay, so resets at you can actually change and reset at short rest.
Is your changing damage type restricted to leveled spells? Can you do that on cantrips too?
I think anything. I think any damage that you're dealing, you should be able to change the type. That's the point of the Warlock. Is that it solves your pack weapon.
So it's not just spell damage, it's all any damage.
If you're gonna attack with your pack weapon, you get to change that damage type. You can deal fire damage with your pack weapon. But
theoretically, there's nothing stopping a Pact of the Tome from carrying a sword. So if they hit somebody with their sword, even though they're Pact of the Tome, I could still change the damage of that sword from slashing.
I don't mind just any damage. It could be your fist for all I care. Again, the whole point is you're activating this rune that's on you at the time. I don't know if it has to be the weapon that you're using. It just has to be as a reaction. You're like, hey, I'm calling forth this rune and I'm going to punch you with a fistful of fire. I don't mind that. Kind of along the same line, like not the main one, but like a bonus one for level 10. How do you feel about, can I burn spell slots to reset a rune?
So the way warlocks work is they only have 1 level. So at 9th level, you're going to burn a 5th level spell slot to do that.
Well, because you always cast it at the highest level. But you know what I'm saying? Like, as just a bonus, if I really wanted to, in the middle of battle, get my rune back, should a level 10 warlock be able to do that? I don't know how important it would be. Like, you really got to judge, is the spell that you could cast worth not casting, like you said, a level 5 spell? But do you see a benefit to being able to tell the warlock, you can reinfuse, the runes so well, you can reinfuse it yourself?
I would say maybe, but I feel like it would make the ability to cast it twice less impactful, or make it feel that ability feel less useful later if we
do add it at level 14 to be able to cast all runes twice.
Yeah.
But then again, if you could cast all runes twice and then recharge it and then get 2 more casts of it,
you saying when I recharge a rune I get 2?
I think it's a recharge. I think it's a full reset. That's why I'm thinking it's kind of impactful at level 10, because it doesn't sound great, but once you can cast the runes twice, that's basically being able to say I can cast a rune 4-6 times as long as I'm burning my spell slots. But again, a warlock burning spell slots is burning your biggest economy. While these runes are great, none of these runes really beat out what a warlock can truly do well. So I feel like it's a nice feature, but it's not going to be one anyone's going to abuse.
I definitely don't think it's going to be something they'll abuse. I do want to make sure that it feels useful enough for them to say,
to consider it,
to not say like, why is this here? You know,
and that's why I'm thinking a full reset, because when they say, well, why is it here? Be like, well, when you get it to level 14 and you can cast a rune twice and you can spend 1 spell slot to reset a rune, that means you get the rune 4 times for 1 spell. That's the way you can argue it. I see it being beneficial. I just don't know. It's not necessary.
Sure.
But I don't think it's hurtful. So let's do another. I would say that would be a secondary if we do it. So what are we going to call level 6 first? So this is change the reaction or change the damage type and be able to reset them on a short rest. What about runic invocation?
So on top of all of this stuff, you are just a regular warlock. So you are going to have regular warlock invocations.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So maybe not. So you don't want to say invocation because that has.
It does have other connotations specifically for warlocks, but.
So what about runic empowerment? Because it's empowering you and you're empowering it. Runic alteration.
I do like that. Both of them, you're like altering which rune you're using, and you're altering the rune.
I like, yeah. Let's go with runic alteration because it really does. That actually does fit for both of them because you're altering it with the rune, but you're also altering the rune itself. Okay, so level 10, we may or may not add the ability to reset, but at this point, now the Rune Knight can grow large, get more damage. They can force someone to reroll against an attack that they did against an ally, and now at level 10, they're gonna just be taller. And when they go into a giant mode, they do 1d8. So they're just getting a little bit stronger. They're a little bit taller and they're getting a little bit stronger when
And
they
what
use
level
that
is this for them?
10. So now we're both leveling up at the same time. So with the Warlock, we have the option of going back and bumping something that we can do. What else can we do for the Warlock to really like? Okay, so we get level 10 to level 14. And by that time, the Rune Knight is going to be able to use their runes twice. And I think that's a good thing for level 14 Warlock. Being able to use their runes twice. Way down there. I don't think level 10 is worthy.
Agreed. How do you feel about being able to change your resistance type to one of your other runes just for an instance of damage? Like when you would be damaged by maybe cold damage and you have a fire rune that you're attuned to, I can, for this instance, use my reaction and do that proficiency number of times.
Would it be too much then to just say after a long rest you can rededicate to a new rune? Instead of just
I
one
feel
moment.
like that would take a little bit of burden off your reaction.
I feel like that too, and I feel like it would make you more tactical in thinking about what are you about to face instead of relying on I can just get out of jail free whenever I want. This one's going to be the one thing that forces you to work with the team.
Yes, I will say it still only really affects you. So I'm torn because I feel like yes, it will require the player to plan more and to understand what's going on more, and I don't want to discourage that. At the same time, I feel like being able to just say it's different now.
What about just adding a secondary resistance? Like you have the one that you've dedicated to, because that's like the whole point, right? You had to dedicate to something. But what if 10th level at a short or long rest, you can choose a second dedicated rune and you get a resistance?
Would it have the same effects as the other rune? Like it's required to be on?
No, this one's just like you just get to choose one more basically at every long rest or every short rest. You get to choose one more.
How about once per short rest, you can activate a second resistance for a minute. So you get to use it for like one combat once per short rest.
Okay.
You can activate a second one for a minute. So if you don't need it this fight, you don't need to like have one on all the time. But like once per short rest, you can give yourself a second resistance for a minute based upon whatever runes you have available to you.
It'd be more versatile. It'd be less powerful, but it would be more versatile. Okay, so we're good with the idea of 1 minute adding the secondary resistance equal to one of the other ones. Okay. Is it a bonus action?
I would say it's an action.
An action?
I
would, because I mean, some of these other runes have like bonus action activation. I wouldn't mind a bonus action for that.
Fair enough. Yeah, you're just.
It's still on your turn, but I still don't want you to like give up an attack just to not be attacked. Like,
sure. Yeah. Okay.
So bonus action, 1 minute additional resistance.
Sure. Yeah. I'm fine with that.
By this point, the fighter can grow and do more damage.
Maybe this could be proficiency number of times where adding a single damage die to a spell you've cast or something like that. Or maybe you look at it the same way you looked at the reaction alteration. You're just adding a damage die to any damage you do.
True.
And maybe you connect that with the runic alteration. So it's whenever you use your reaction to change the damage type, you also add a damage die. You could just combine those two abilities and just like upgrade that ability to add a damage die to it.
I could see that. I don't mind the idea of increasing damage, because I mean that's kind of the idea when you think of like giants, right?
Right.
You think the idea of being strong.
I want to make sure the abilities that we have are still feel like they come from giants and aren't just like all of a sudden some other source of find spells for.
I know what we were talking about. We were talking about being able to reactivate and reinfuse a used up rune.
Oh,
for level 10.
Yeah. That's
whether
right.
or not you can burn a spell slot or do something as a warlock to reset one rune in between short rests, because they all reset at short rests, and then you can change them up. and we don't know what the cost will be, but I was thinking a spell slot. And, and I think at 14th, we're probably going to give it, you can cast the runes twice, you can invoke them twice, and I think we're going to give it the immunity damage.
At 10 right now?
Yeah, we're still at 10. We're trying to figure out what the secondary on 10 is. So that's why I was thinking maybe 10 should have the one where we can reinfuse a rune.
I mean, I'm not specifically mad at that. My biggest question that I'm asking is like, how often can I see myself using it? I think it's worth putting on there for now.
Okay, unless we come up with a different one.
Yeah.
So reset rune at a charge of 1 spell slot.
Yeah.
And you can
at the charge of a warlock spell. So you're gonna spend a 5th level spell slot to refresh a rune.
To get its
proctability back.
Yeah.
So instead of saying it refreshes a rune, can we say it uses the ability of a rune again? So like you're using it in that moment, you're expending that magic to do the thing in that moment. Like if the rune says use a bonus action to activate it, then you're using a bonus action after this rune has already been expended to expend a spell slot to do the thing.
Okay, so instead of recharging, what if at level 10 you can use a bonus action to gain additional resistance for 1 minute? And also, what if you say as a bonus action, when you cast a warlock spell, you can invoke a rune for free. So you cast a spell, but I also get to invoke a rune. And like you said, I only get 2 spell slots. So I can only really get 2 free rune usages, but that would be in line with the whole runic alteration. This is
now. Read me a rune. I want to see this in action real quick. So like an activated rune ability.
So like the frost rune, when you invoke the rune as a bonus action, you increase your sturdiness for 10 minutes. You gain +2 to all ability checks and saving throws that use a strength or constitution.
Activated, or is that passive?
That's it, activated. Fire, when you activate it, the target takes 2d6 fire damage, and they have to succeed a strength or be restrained. So these are pretty these can be impressive if you can get them off.
So would you say whichever rune you activate has to qualify for whatever your spell is doing? So in that situation, if the spell doesn't have a target, then you wouldn't be able to activate that.
Yeah, you wouldn't do like an area of effect.
If I was
it would have to be in line with it.
I would say something to the effect of like applicable or compatible implementation or something to that effect.
Because then again, like you said, you're only getting free rune usages equal to your spell slots. So it's making each time you cast a spell more impactful, but you don't have to use it each time either.
I do like this idea.
How are we going to write this out? This is when casting a warlock spell.
A leveled warlock spell.
So
how about this? When using a warlock spell slot. Because in 5th edition, if you multi-class, you don't get to get this when you cast a wizard spell at like 1st level. You have to be using your maxed out warlock spell slot.
Yeah, so a little bit better to that, but that's how we'll do that one. I like that. I think that actually is a pretty solid level 10.
Now we haven't talked about it yet because it's literally next in our progression, but would you say this could be used with Mystic Arcanum spells? The ones that go beyond 5th level?
Yes. Because it's still a warlock. You're still spending the warlock spell slot, right?
Theoretically, the verbiage is you cast this without expending a spell slot.
Then no. I think the spell slot is where it's at. I think that's because those are kind of like...
They're once a day. They're just once a day spells. They're not like once a short rest. They're once a day spells, but...
They're basically dedicated spell slots.
Yes.
I don't mind that. I would say we can add the verbiage that this also counts for...
your Mystic Arcanum spells.
Because that's very specific. Like you said, that's very specific to warlock spell. Cool. I like that. All right. So at level 14, I think we already talked about level 14. We just got to make sure that these are enough for a capstone. But we did talk about upping the dedication resistance to immunity.
Got you. Would you say this immunity is only for your dedicated rune, not your 1 minute activated rune? I kind of feel like it should be just your dedicated rune.
I feel like it should be too. I could see the argument for the other because it's only 1 minute, but no, I think it should only be for your dedicated. The other one, you still get to proc for the extra damage resistance. That's more than fine. I think a resistance and immunity is fine.
For sure.
Okay, so let's name 10 real quick. So we have Pact Rune, Runic Alteration, and this one's like Runic Empowerment.
That was going through my head as you said that.
Runic Empowerment. Okay, I think that's it. All right, so level 14, you now have an immunity to your dedicated rune. We also talked about doing the similar of Master of Runes. So now each rune can be activated twice. Are we still good with that?
I'm fine with that.
I feel like that's not enough for the capstone. I feel like while 5th edition would have probably stopped here, I feel like these are
Activated
still
twice. How often are we saying that's happening? Once a long rest?
Yeah, that's still once a long rest. They get 2 invoking of the runes twice.
And they have 5 at this point?
And they have 5.
When do they get their 5th one?
Right now. They just got their 5th one. But this is their capstone. This is it. This is all they're going to get.
Sure.
If you think about it, next level is when the Rune Knight gets to do it, but they're also going to get one more. He's going to get one more after this, whereas the Warlock's going to be done.
Sure.
But the Warlock also got it earlier. So the Warlock stops early, but also started early. I don't mind giving this one more. I think 5th edition would stop here. I think it deserves one more little capstone to carry it through the rest of the game. Nothing that's like uber powerful, but I still think we could limit this to you get 2 usages of your dedicated rune, and then we can add a 3rd ability that's like the big capstone.
Okay, I'm not mad at that either.
Because right now, these 2, immunity and 2 invocations, actually feels pretty standard for what 5th edition would give it. I want to give it more, but I think that would feel overpowered. So if we limited it to you get 2 of your dedicated, but then a big capstone at the end, I think that would round this out. I don't even mind giving it 3 invocations of your dedication.
I like 3 if we're gonna do just 1. And I kind of like the idea of, how do you feel about summon a vestige of your patron? Imagine if you like bring a giant out onto the battlefield to come fight with you or something like that.
It feels a little outside of what we've been doing. So
that's very true. That's very true. But again, this is, even though everything we're doing is like rune based, because we're a warlock,
you still have a patron.
We're here with our patron. So that's the only reason I'm thinking that. I was almost thinking about calling it Giant's Blessing, like this last ability.
Because I almost thought about too, like, I feel like it's too late to start buffing the party. Like I thought about what if you could like give party members your damage resistance, but I feel like it's too late for that. Like thinking at this point, we kind of have to stick with the idea that we're intertwining our magic with these runes. I do like the idea of being able to call upon your deity, but again, giants are just like, there's not a lot to work with in terms of like, what would a giant do? I was almost trying to think of like gigantic ruin, where overpower one of these abilities, like, you know, as if being cast by a giant, you know what I mean? Like at its full, like these are only what we can do because we're not giants, but can you imagine what a giant would do with these runes, right? But I don't know how that would actually like manifest for a warlock.
I'm almost thinking something like giant vestige, where you count as size, like you don't necessarily grow or anything, but you count as size large or count as size huge for the purposes of they can't grapple something that's huge or something like that, as well as like increasing like standard damage for things.
What if you embody your patron for 1 minute, you act as size huge, you take on the stat block of your dedicated giant. So if you chose Frost Giant, you take on this everything. You just take on their stat block.
I feel like if you're gonna do that, you're gonna want to make every giant stat block equal, because they're different CRs. Some are clearly more powerful than others.
Gotcha. Maybe you could just take like a bump into certain stats for temporarily, or just give yourself like a +4 up to 22 in like 2 or 3 stats for the 1 minute.
Maybe in your physical stats.
Yeah. So you act a size large, strength, dexterity, and constitution increase by 4 up to 22 for the 1 minute. And I'm wondering if we should just either the warlock spells or the runes do like double damage. I'm just trying to think of like, you basically become the essence of your patron, and your patron's usage of these runes are far beyond what you can do. When you become this vestige, not only are you huge, not only do you have these increased stats, but now using the runes, you are using it to their full potential.
I definitely like that. I feel like it would be important for us to articulate what that doubling looks like for each one of the runes.
Because we'll have, because each one doesn't really do damage specifically. Oh, what about this? So for 1 minute, you act as size huge. You gain strength, dex, and constitution of 4 up to 22 for the duration. And for the duration, you expend no usages of your runes. Like you don't invoke your runes to use them. So as in for 1 minute, your runes are fucking on blast. If you have a rune that goes on a bonus action, every round, bonus action. If you have a rune that goes on a reaction, bonus action, reaction. You can basically, for 1 minute, just flood the battlefield with your runes while you're in this vestige. Then you go back to normal. But that would be kind of dope.
I would say if you get that, then it should be more than once a long rest. It should be, you should be able to use it less than once a long rest, as in you should take like a couple of days or maybe a week to recharge or something like that. Because being able to,
because 1 minute is a long time,
spam all of your things, one combat a day, just basically having unlimited number of these runic usages for one combat a day, that's powerful.
But while it's unlimited, they all use either a bonus action or a reaction.
Like they're still using action economy, yeah.
So it's not like you can.
But doing them every single turn in an entire combat, like
I don't mind time ones, but I don't think 5th edition works with them.
I do agree. Like it's harder, but there are even some spells that say you can't cast this again for like a month or something like that.
I know this is a little bit out of 5th edition's concepts, but what if it was a percentage chance to get it back at a long rest guaranteed after? So like you have a 25% chance every long rest to get this ability back, but you're guaranteed
but if you get it, but if you don't get it back by the third one,
by the third long rest, you guarantee to get it back. So it resets at every third long rest, but 25% chance per long rest to reset.
I'm not mad at that. Like I feel like it's very akin to like creature abilities that come back on a 5 or a 6.
I don't know how we're gonna write like the recycle, right? But we're basically gonna say once every 3 long rests, or 25% chance per long, you can take the form of your patron. You act as size huge, +4 strength dex con up to 22, and you do not invoke runes when using it. That doesn't sound bad.
I agree.
How would that be? Is that an action to activate that?
I feel like this is like you're going Super Saiyan. This is an action. Like you're doing something.
I like that. I think that that's actually pretty fucking dope.
Yeah.
I don't think we need specialty spells for this. I think the runes are enough. I think we could add maybe a rune or two, but I don't really think we need to do much with the spells unless we want to say that you can have access to spells under the rune of your choice. Like if the giant has spells.
I like the idea because again, not all of them have them. I like the idea of if you choose stone, you have like meld into stone at a certain level. I think that would be cool.
Okay.
I like the idea if you choose like wind or cloud, maybe you get like thunder step or something like that.
Okay. If you choose the fire one, maybe you'll actually get like, maybe something that you wouldn't normally get.
Maybe like I think a really good one instead of fireball, scorching ray.
Oh yeah,
would be really cool.
Yeah, I think that's pretty solid. That feels like a very unique type of warlock. I think that's another success.
Do you have a name for that last feature?
Did you like Giant Visage?
I was gonna think that was gonna be specifically for that activated ability will be called Giant's Visage, but like the whole feature might have its own name.
Runic Embodiment?
It said something a while ago. Kind of liked it. It was something along the lines of like Giant's Gift or something like that, or
Boon of the Giant.
I kind of like that.
It just doesn't really align with the rest of the book. We have Pact Rune, Runic
everything else is Rune,
Runic Empowerment, and then
Giant's Visage.
And that's what I was saying, like Runic Embodiment. Because you had, Alteration, Empowerment, and now Embodiment. You're embodying.
I'm not mad at that for like the name of the feature. And then
Giant Visage.
And then when you specifically, because you're gonna get the immunity regardless. And you're going to activate Giant's Visage.
Let's do Runic Embodiment is the level 14, and then you can do Giant's Visage is the actual activated ability. How about that? That makes a lot more sense.
Runic Embodiment.
Right now, this is if it matters, because like most of this is just chicken scratch, just so I will remember what we talked about. All right. That's actually a lot of fun, though. I like this. I think the last thing we have now is what are we going to call this damn thing? Because I think Rune Warlock is just boring. You know what I mean? But we have Rune Knight. So
I will say I just put like a a temporary name in here because the majority of Warlock subclasses are named after their patron. So I called it Rune Giant.
Okay, so yeah, I guess because you're looking at Warlock the Undying, because it's more like Warlock of the Undying, Warlock of the Undead. Like, that's
Yeah,
kind
but
of
like
their
the
titles.
Archfey is your patron, the Genie is your patron, a Great Old One is your patron.
Right. So this would be Runic Giant is your patron.
Yes.
Like Runic Giant is your patron. So yeah, so this would just be Warlock, Runic Giant, I guess. So yeah, Runic Giant.
We got Pact Rune, Runic Alteration, Runic Empowerment, Runic Embodiment.
I like that. I think we have done another successful job here.
Agreed.
So, yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. I think the Runic Giant Warlock is viable. Is it game breaking? Is it game changing? Is this going to be like the next big thing everybody wants to work with? No. But that's not what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to make the next big class that's going to be the next big viral movement. What we're just trying to do is make the lore make sense to how would a group of different people from different backgrounds come across this knowledge and how would they utilize it. I'm really curious what you guys think about what we did here today. We want your feedback. Let us know in the comments if you're on YouTube. What do you want to see? What do you think that we could do better? Was there anything that we missed? Is there anything that you thought that this class could have used? Let us know. Have a good rest of your day, y'all. Cheers.
This is my friends.